Phantom Liberty is not just a superb DLC for a great game, although it is a superb DLC for a great game, don't get me wrong, but it's more than that. It's also evidence that CD Projekt Red listened to the criticisms about the original game in its 1.0 state, and they learned from them. Take the main quest for example. As with the main game's quest, it has a great story, tons of atmosphere, and it does draw you in and get you very invested in the characters. In this particular case, V becomes a secret agent in what ends up feeling like a James Bond movie with espionage, gadgets, secret lairs, car chases, and even a casino scene. But unlike the main quest in the main game, Phantom Liberty is paced really well, and it allows you to do all of the side quests and gigs without feeling like you're just ignoring the narrative. The quest feels important, and there are moments when it's urgent, but there are plenty of natural pauses and even reasons to do the other content that gets delivered in Phantom Liberty. And that content is well worth doing. I mean, the side jobs in Phantom Liberty are more or less what you would expect having played the main game. Some of them are serious and a little dark, and others are fun and even amusing at times. But what stood out to me were the fixer gigs. There are actually 9 new gigs, and each of them feels way more fleshed out and involved than the gigs from the main game. They often involve a serious choice for the player to make, and that choice can have consequences in-game. Many of them have a lot of dialogue now when compared to the gigs in Night City, and I have to say, overall, they seem a lot more like the side jobs now. Basically, these gigs feel like storied quests rather than filler content. And even the filler content in this DLC is a little different to the filler content in the main game, or specifically in the area known as Dogtown, which is a new area that's been added to the map, although it should be noted that some of that new filler content does actually make its way into Night City as well. What you will not find in Dogtown are the NCPD assaults. In fact, the NCPD don't even operate there. Now, there are little groups of hostiles, scavs, thugs, voodoo boys, etc., and you can slaughter them for their bounties if you want, but they're not marked on the map. There's nothing special about them at all. However, there are 3 new types of filler content. For example, there are places you can discover in Dogtown that will get marked on your map as having increased criminal activity. Now, these are fairly major combat encounters and involve a lot of fighting. They're kind of like NCPD encounters, except way bigger, and you have way better loot. But what I liked about them is it felt perfectly reasonable for this gang to still be there 3 or 4 weeks later if you return because you didn't take them out. Unlike those NCPD assaults that you could discover, a robbery going on and then come back a month later and the robbery was still going on. These are bases, and it makes perfect sense for you to go away and come back and take them on when you've got time and, you've got the ammunition you're going to need. You will also get random airdrops around Dogtown, and you can fight the locals to get to them and reap the rewards found within. These are usually pretty short battles compared to the increased criminal activity zones, but the rewards can still be worth the effort, especially since you can get things like free iconic cyberware and quite a lot of other stuff. But unlike the NCPD assaults in Night City, these are temporary and can be missed if you're too busy to stop. So if you see one and you just go on your merry way and come back 10 minutes later, you've probably missed it. But that's fine, it's okay to actually miss these because some will appear later. They're never ending. So you just engage with them when you have a spare moment, or if you're just in the mood to get some loot. There are also now missions to steal cars, which I think is a great thing. This should have been there from the start, in my opinion. These missions are random, like the airdrops, and again, you can decide if you want to engage with them or not, knowing that there will always be more. These missions are also pretty rewarding. They often give experience shards, as well as crafting components, items, and cash. I will say I do have a little complaint about these missions in that they don't always make a whole lot of sense. Sometimes the vehicles you're stealing really don't look worth stealing. They don't look worth the rewards you got for them. So you're always wondering, am I carrying something in the truck? Or you're given criteria, you have to deliver the car in a certain amount of time, or you're fighting off hordes of gang members who are trying to retrieve the car, and no real reason is ever given for why this is happening. And honestly, it does feel a tad random. Probably because it is. But still, they're actually kind of fun. But what I will say about the filler content in Dogtown, especially the last two types, is that it feels like filler content. It feels random. They're temporary. They only appear when you get close to them. They don't fill the map with tons of icons that make you feel like you need to complete them the way the game did, you know, in 1.0 when you first exited into Watson and were bombarded with all the filler content. In Dogtown, the filler content is never ending, but it's not in your face. And I do like that. They're fun things to engage with if you want loot and experience, but they can be ignored if you've got an important mission to do. I have to say, along with all of the changes and fixes that arrived in 2.0 and the various patches before that, to be honest, the way CD Projekt Red approached the content in this DLC really makes it a lot more relaxing to play than the main game in many ways. It still keeps that sense that what you're doing is critically important. It's just the pacing feels so much better, and the way you engage with the content feels a lot more natural. Now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of other reasons to play the DLC other than just the improved pacing. The main quest is brilliant, with lots of new things and even new mechanics to enjoy, although, again, some minor complaints every now and again with some of the mechanics in some of the missions because they felt a little hit and miss. For example, there's a mission where I tried to guide one of the NPCs through a mission without getting spotted, and honestly, it was a tad frustrating. But overall, still a lot of fun. There are loads of new weapons, cyberware, and even vehicles, and of course, there is the whole area in which to play, Dogtown. I've not really talked about Dogtown very much so far, but it's a whole new area that's been added to the map, but it has its own unique look and feel. It's a little run down, yet somehow has a bit of a colourful holiday vibe, a place to get away. And whilst I definitely still prefer Night City by a long way, because, well, basically I'm a street kid at heart, Dogtown, much like the Badlands, can be a welcome change of scenery at times. And hey, as messed up and destroyed as it is at times, at least it's not Pacifica, right?